What if the war on your border is only the faintest tremor, a signal of an earthquake yet to come? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest. The first trees fall silently, but soon the cracking echoes grow louder, signaling an unstoppable wildfire approaching. The recent strikes on Belgorod are not isolated incidents. They are calculated steps, rehearsals for a much larger offensive. This is not random violence. It is a deliberate escalation, hinting that the conflict is poised to spill beyond its current frontiers. Consider the image of power grids failing. In Belgorod, entire city blocks have been plunged into darkness. For decades, the hum of electricity was taken for granted. Children did homework under bright lamps. Businesses thrived. Hospitals operated around the clock. But now, with the grid down, families huddle by candlelight, unable to heat their homes as temperatures plummet. The local government, for the first time in living memory, has admitted that they may not be able to keep citizens warm as winter approaches. Schools, once centers of learning, are hastily converted into emergency shelters, their classrooms filled not with the sounds of recitation, but the anxious whispers of displaced neighbors. The very rhythm of daily life is threatened. This is not just about discomfort. Historically, when vital infrastructure collapses, broader social chaos follows. Recall the North American blackout of 2003, when millions lost power for days. Grocery stores ran out of food, water distribution faltered, and social order frayed. Belgorod is now teetering on that edge, but under the shadow of war, the consequences could be even more severe. The fragility of daily existence is exposed, and the sense of security that once felt permanent is now paper-thin. But the threat is not confined to Belgorod. Both Moscow and Saint Petersburg, the twin pillars of Russian civilization, are enacting extraordinary security protocols. Emergency drills unfold in every district, from fire stations practicing rapid deployment to hospitals running mass casualty simulations. The echoes of history are unmistakable. During the siege of Leningrad in World War II, citizens endured years of deprivation and fear. Today, while the threat is different, the sense of collective anxiety is eerily similar. It feels as if the nation itself is bracing for a wider catastrophe, the kind that rewrites history books and leaves scars for generations. What is truly at stake is far more than one city or even one region. The stability of Russia, and possibly the global order, hangs in the balance. To dismiss these signals is to risk national insecurity, economic unraveling, and a collapse of international influence. These events are not random. They form a pattern that touches everyone, from diplomats in Geneva to factory workers in Detroit. Let us look closer and uncover how these mounting crises reveal a sweeping, coordinated strategy. To do this, we must zoom out, far beyond the immediate headlines, tracing the faint but unmistakable lines that connect events across continents and oceans. Zooming out, the evidence suggests these actions are not isolated. They fit into a larger, deliberate campaign. To grasp the true scope, we must follow the pattern behind the headlines. Think of the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 1960s. A series of seemingly disconnected moves, missile deployments, naval blockades, political bluffs, culminated in a global standoff. Today, the world is witnessing a similar chessboard, though the pieces are more numerous, and the stakes, arguably, even higher. Why now, and why these locations? That is the question haunting global analysts as Russia redraws the map of confrontation in real time. The stakes have never felt higher, or more unpredictable. In Belgorod, a Russian border city, relentless bombardments have killed scores of civilians, including children. Entire neighborhoods are without power, heating, or reliable water. Officials warn that, for the first time in living memory, the region may not survive the coming winter intact. What began as violence is now a slow-motion collapse of the region's vital systems. To illustrate, picture the winter of 1941 in Moscow, when German forces threatened to encircle the city. The breakdown of supply lines led to starvation and cold, yet the population endured through extraordinary hardship. Belgorod's struggle today, though distinct, echoes this historical lesson. When a region's lifelines are cut, resilience is tested to its breaking point. Thousands of kilometers to the east, Russia's deployment of Oreshnik missile complexes in the Far East has sent shockwaves throughout the Pacific. These batteries are now positioned to put American bases in Alaska within direct reach, a reality not seen in over 3 decades. The Pentagon's urgent meetings betray the anxiety beneath the surface, as the balance of power across the Pacific shifts with a single strategic move. Imagine being in the Pentagon's war room as maps are unrolled, advisors scramble to recalculate flight times, and generals are forced to confront the reality that American soil is now within striking distance. The last time this happened, during the height of the Cold War, the entire world held its breath. Now, the specter returns, but with new technologies, new alliances, and far greater unpredictability. But Moscow's escalation is not confined to Europe or Asia. In Latin America, President Maduro of Venezuela is forging an unprecedented military pact with Russia, while Cuba is re-emerging as a strategic outpost. In Africa, the small nation of Togo has suddenly become a new focal point for Russian influence, proving this is not a series of coincidences, but a coordinated campaign spanning continents. Consider the Monroe Doctrine, once the cornerstone of American policy in the Western Hemisphere. For almost 2 centuries, outside powers were warned to stay away from Latin America. Now, with Russian advisors in Caracas and Havana, that doctrine is being openly challenged. Each new alliance is a stone thrown into the calm waters of global order, sending ripples that could become waves. Political aftershocks are spreading as well. In Ukraine's parliament, an initiative to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize failed, exposing deep rifts among lawmakers and hinting at broader unrest beneath the political surface. Such events, seemingly peripheral, reveal fractures in the unity of nations under stress, fractures that hostile actors can exploit. What binds these events is not only their timing, but their intent. Russia's strategy is methodical, leveraging energy, military deployments, and diplomatic maneuvers to probe for weaknesses and sap Western resolve. Every move is a calculated effort to stretch resources, sow confusion, and rewrite the rules of engagement without firing the first shot in a wider war. If the true pattern goes unnoticed, the risks are profound. Not just political embarrassment, but real threats to economic stability, the safety of ordinary citizens, and the credibility of entire nations. Yet these are only the visible fractures. What lurks beneath, behind closed doors and off the public record, may determine the world's fate. To understand what is truly at stake, we must look beyond the headlines and decipher the hidden strategies in play. The next moves may be even more unpredictable and far-reaching. Imagine the intelligence briefings that never reach the public, the covert negotiations, the cyber operations quietly unfolding. These are the invisible threads that can snap without warning, triggering repercussions that reverberate worldwide. Are we witnessing a string of coincidences? Or is this the unveiling of a deliberate blueprint for a new world order? The deeper we look, the more unsettling the reality becomes. History is replete with turning points that were missed in real time. Think of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, dismissed at first as a local tragedy, but soon igniting the First World War. Every Russian deployment sends shockwaves through the Pentagon. High-level meetings, urgent briefings, and rapid strategic recalculations follow, because Moscow's moves spark alarm far beyond Eastern Europe. This is not just about troops massing at a border. It is about shaping the future battlefield for years, perhaps even decades to come. Russia's campaign is not confined to its armed forces. Massive infrastructure projects are quietly underway. Expansive roads, modernized energy grids, advanced camouflage, and deep logistical networks. These assets are being embedded across Eurasia, the Arctic, and reaching into Africa and Latin America, laying groundwork for a long-term, multi-dimensional contest. Think of the Trans-Siberian Railway, built over a century ago to bind a continent. Today's efforts echo that ambition, but with the added dimension of digital connectivity and military integration. In the Urals, Tension escalates as successive waves of drone strikes batter industrial sites. Each attack triggers evacuations, sudden communication blackouts, and rapid emergency responses. The tempo is relentless, calculated to keep regions unstable and to drain resources and resolve. Meanwhile, strategic bomber flights, featuring the legendary Tu-95 and Tu-160, cut across the skies of former Soviet republics. These sorties are synchronized with drone swarms and pinpoint attacks on vital infrastructure. Power grids sputter, logistics hubs falter, sending an unmistakable warning: no target is safe, and no boundary is truly secure. The West scrambles to respond, rushing advanced air defense systems and long-range missiles to its partners. Yet every shipment draws swift Russian retaliation: precision strikes that hit supply depots, factories, and key transport arteries. Russia adapts quickly, forcing the West into a defensive posture, always reacting, never dictating the pace. The initiative lies elsewhere, and the West, for perhaps the first time in generations, is forced to play catch-up. Yet the most profound change is unfolding off the battlefield. New alliances are cemented, enduring pacts with Venezuela and Cuba, intelligence sharing, and a visible Russian military footprint in Africa and Latin America. These are not hollow gestures. They are the foundation stones of a shifting global balance, extending into the Western Hemisphere and the global South. If Western leaders dismiss these signals as isolated provocations, they risk forfeiting entire regions, technological dominance, and the credibility of their deterrence. The stakes are concrete: global energy flows, digital security, and the daily safety of millions hang in the balance. Underestimating this strategy could mean surrendering the power to shape tomorrow. But as the world reacts, a new front quietly emerges, one that does not rely on missiles or tanks. The contest for influence is moving into cyberspace, commerce, and the very fabric of global society. Cyber attacks on pipelines, financial exchanges, and even hospitals are no longer the stuff of fiction. In 2017, the NotPetya malware, widely attributed to Russian actors, crippled companies and infrastructure across several continents, causing billions in damages and exposing new vulnerabilities. What if the old rules no longer hold? What if, as in the era before the Treaty of Westphalia, the boundaries between war and peace, state and non-state actors, are blurred beyond recognition? Right now, the world stands at the edge of a seismic shift. Russia's recent joint naval exercise with India in the Indian Ocean is no mere demonstration. It signals a deeper, more consequential change than any single conflict we see. This quiet partnership hints at a new global playbook, one where major powers reposition themselves far from the public eye. Consider the implications of the Anglo-Japanese alliance in the early 20th century, a surprise alignment that upended the balance of power in Asia and set the stage for decades of rivalry and conflict. Meanwhile, China watches in silence. Its leaders are patient, calculating, poised to act when the moment is right. Beijing's quiet is not apathy, but deliberate preparation. As Russia pushes boundaries, China takes notes, waiting for the balance to tilt in its favor. The lessons of history are clear. When great powers move in concert or parallel, the world order can change overnight. The global stage is not limited to Eurasia and the Pacific. Africa and Central Asia are emerging as critical battlegrounds. Military outposts appear seemingly overnight. Influence campaigns gather momentum. These regions, once considered peripheries, are transforming into the new front lines of power. In the scramble for Africa in the 19th century, European powers carved up the continent for resources and prestige. Today, influence is bought with infrastructure deals, military trainers, and digital investments. Moscow's reach now extends well beyond its traditional sphere. Each new alliance, each distant outpost, redraws the world's map. The lines of influence blur, and the stakes escalate with every move. In the information age, a social media campaign can destabilize a government as effectively as a battalion of tanks. Across the West, the mood is different. Leaders in Washington and European capitals struggle for clarity and unity. Hesitation and division set in, leaving responses fragmented and increasingly reactive. As old powers debate their options, the world is changing faster than they realize. The Suez Crisis of 1956 comes to mind, a moment when Western indecision and miscalculation led to a dramatic loss of influence in the Middle East. Flashpoints multiply. Drone strikes rattle Odessa. Blackouts plunge entire regions into darkness. What once seemed isolated is now systemic. Each event on its own might be contained, but together they signal a relentless, coordinated campaign meant to strain resources and resolve to the breaking point. For the United States and Europe, the challenge is unprecedented. Their influence is being openly contested, everywhere, all at once. Assumptions about deterrence, alliances, even their place atop the global order, are all being tested as never before. If individuals and nations misjudge what is unfolding, the consequences could be devastating. Security, economic strength, global reputation, and political agency, nothing is assured. The rise of a multipolar world is not just a theory, it is a force that will shape jobs, investments, and daily life everywhere. Now, as the dawn of this new era breaks, only one question matters. Can we adapt in time, or will we be swept away by history's fastest-moving tide? In the past, civilizations that failed to adapt, like the Ottomans at the dawn of the Industrial Age, were left behind, their influence diminished for centuries. The pieces are moving, but one final act remains. What happens when the world's major players are forced to reveal their hands? Will there be a new Yalta Conference, where the world is quietly carved into spheres of influence? Or will the escalation spiral beyond anyone's control? How do you truly protect your future in an era defined by upheaval? Today's headlines arrive in a constant barrage, but the real story hides beneath the surface, woven through patterns that connect seemingly random events. Instead of drowning in the noise, step back and search for repeating strategies, unusual partnerships, and shifting allegiances shaping the global stage. What first looks like a local disaster, an attack on a border town, a cyber assault on critical infrastructure, may actually be a single piece of a much larger, calculated design. The Russian escalation is not an isolated incident. Across the Pacific, through Latin America, and deep into Africa, Moscow's maneuvers are coordinated, signaling a calculated shift that threatens to reshape the world far beyond any one crisis point. This is not just saber-rattling, it is a systematic expansion of power and influence. The shockwaves reach your daily life, touching energy bills, job prospects, and even the information that shapes your beliefs. To see the whole picture, you must engage in global dialogue. Share your own experiences, but listen to those living in different corners of the world. When diverse voices exchange insights, the hidden connections become visible, revealing impacts that no single newsfeed can capture. Each perspective is a vital clue, together mapping how distant events could alter your neighborhood, your career, and your sense of security. In this landscape, information is your shield. Staying informed, nimble, and resilient is no longer just wise, it is essential. Oversimplified narratives, blaming only one side, downplaying foreign threats, or pretending crises stop at borders, can be reassuring, but dangerously misleading. History teaches us that global tremors often reach us much faster than we expect. Do not wait for a shock to force your hand. Begin now to trace how shifting alliances, economic ties, and technology could disrupt your local reality. Draw a line between the world's flashpoints and your own life. A power grid attack thousands of kilometers away can cause utility spikes at home. A new alliance may reroute trade, threaten local jobs, or flood your media with unfamiliar narratives. The international order is being rewritten, and no community is immune, no matter how distant the threat may seem. Ignore these signals, and you risk more than personal loss. The cost is collective: eroded security, diminished influence, and economic upheaval for your community and nation. In an interconnected world, awareness and action are your best defense against the cascading risks of global change. So, what can you do right now to stay ahead? First, Cultivate a habit of critical consumption. Do not rely on a single news outlet or social media platform. Instead, compare reports from multiple sources, including those based in other countries. If possible, read local journalism from affected regions. This mosaic of perspectives will help you spot trends and inconsistencies that a single narrative might conceal. Second, participate in open forums and discussions about international affairs. Join online communities or attend local seminars where experts dissect ongoing crises. Use these opportunities to ask questions, especially those that challenge prevailing wisdom. For example, consider the questions that were not asked before the global financial crisis of 2008. Those who probed deeper, who questioned the foundations of the system, were better prepared to weather the storm. Third, map out how global events can affect your own circumstances. If you work in technology, examine how cyber threats or supply chain disruptions might impact your job. If you are part of an export-oriented business, stay informed about changing tariffs, sanctions, or emerging markets. In the 1970s, the oil embargo reshaped economies overnight. Those who anticipated the shock were able to pivot quickly, while others suffered prolonged hardship. Fourth, advocate for transparency and accountability from your local and national leaders. Demand regular updates on security measures, energy policy, and foreign investments. In democratic societies, citizen engagement has historically been a key defense against unwise or secretive policy moves. In the aftermath of the Watergate scandal, for example, public scrutiny led to sweeping reforms. Fifth, invest in your own resilience. This could mean developing a personal emergency plan, diversifying your skill set, or building supportive networks in your community. During the COVID-19 pandemic, individuals and organizations that had flexible plans and strong support systems adapted far more successfully to the crisis. Look for the patterns others miss and turn awareness into action. The next step is not only to understand, but to prepare. History is shaped not by distant rulers, but by those who recognize and respond to turning points. Will you be among them? What we have examined is not a far-off chess game, but a living script unfolding in front of us, with consequences that spread far beyond the latest headlines. Russia's synchronized actions, from battered border towns to Pacific deployments to bold steps in Latin America and Africa, are more than scattered crises. These moves form a deliberate signal. The rules of global engagement are shifting, and these changes will touch every life, whether you act or remain a bystander. If you think these developments are too remote to affect you, think again. Security, economic health, and your nation's influence are now at stake. Ignoring these signals or failing to act means letting others determine your fate in a world growing more unpredictable each day. This is a time that demands active awareness, not passive observation. Move beyond the surface. Read deeply, question what you hear, and discuss what matters. Do not surrender the future to those with the loudest voices or the brightest screens. Every informed perspective is a line of defense in this era of complex pressure. Your understanding and your willingness to challenge assumptions are more vital than ever. So, what path will you choose? Will you watch from the sidelines or step into the wider conversation shaping the world order as it evolves before us? The future is still unwritten, being forged piece by those willing to engage. Your choices matter now, more than ever before. In the end, the question is not whether change is coming. It is already here. The real question is, will you recognize the signs, adapt, and help shape what comes next? Or will you let history's tide decide for you? The answer, as always, lies in your own hands.